The iPhone 7, the 2016 iPhone, is almost here. The iPhone 7 announcement is actually less than a month away, and Apple is currently testing 3 separate iPhone 7 models, the regular 4.7-inch model, and then 2 5.5-inch models, the iPhone 7 Plus, and the iPhone 7 Pro. The iPhone 7 Pro does come with quite a lot of extra features, one of them being that dual camera module. Now personally, I do not see Apple selling 3 separate iPhone 7 models in September. One of the models is definitely going to be dropped, most likely the iPhone 7 Plus, the 5.5-inch model that doesn't come with the dual camera module. So then we'll have the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Pro. However, Apple will probably call the iPhone 7 Pro, so this one with that dual camera module, the iPhone 7 Plus, for naming consistency. So hey everyone, welcome to Dozen of Tech, I'm Daniel, and now that we know pretty much everything there is to know in terms of the iPhone 7s, let's take a look and see how the iPhone 7 compares to the iPhone 7 Plus, all the details in detail. Enjoy. Okay, so section number 1, we have the design. So in terms of the design, you might have seen my iPhone 7 Final Exam Rumor series, so you pretty much know that the iPhone 7 looks pretty much identical to the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6s when it comes to the design. The only actual differences from the iPhone 6 and 6s are the antenna bands. The top and the bottom ones are now gone, and only the edges ones are present, which makes the iPhone 7 look much better now, at least in my opinion. Besides this, no headphone jack on the iPhone 7s, and also dual stereo speakers, both of which I will be covering in a second. So the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus, how do they differ? So in terms of the dimensions and the size, well, there's a huge difference between the two models. The iPhone 7 comes with a 4.7-inch display and the iPhone 7 Plus comes with a 5.5-inch display. But it's not just the display size, the iPhone 7 Plus is just huge. The iPhone 7 has a height of 138mm and the iPhone 7 Plus has a height of 158mm. That's a massive difference, 20mm or 2 centimeters, that's huge. In terms of the width, 67 versus 78mm, so massive 11mm difference, not even to mention the slightly thicker body that we get with the iPhone 7 Plus. Yeah, the iPhone 7 Plus is a pretty massive phone. Now the iPhones have already had pretty thick top and bottom bezels, so just for comparison, this is an iPhone 6s Plus versus a Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, and interesting enough, both phones have the exact same display size, 5.5 inches, however the difference in size is just incredible. And finally, weight-wise, the iPhone 7 is going to come at about 140 to 150 grams, whereas the iPhone 7 Plus will come at 190 to 200 grams. So yeah, the iPhone 7 Plus is also much heavier than the iPhone 7. Now besides this, the display size and the actual dimensions of the two phones, the second design difference is in terms of the camera module. So on the iPhone 7 Plus, we're going to get a dual camera module, whereas on the iPhone 7, we're only going to get a single module camera system, however with a much larger aperture than before, which we'll be covering in the camera section of this video. And then we also have a smart connector on the iPhone 7 Pro. Again, this might be called the Pro or the Plus. Apple has been testing 3 different iPhone 7 models, the 7, the Plus, and then the Pro, the one I'm talking about, the one with that dual camera module. So if this is the case, if this phone will be called the iPhone 7 Pro instead of the iPhone 7 Plus, then I will be updating the title. But other than that, these are the only design differences between the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus. Moving on to the second section of this video, we have the displays. So in terms of the display size, again, 4.7 inches on the iPhone 7 and then 5.5 inches on the iPhone 7 Plus. As for the actual resolution, we have 1334 by 750 on the iPhone 7 and then 1920 by 1080 on the iPhone 7 Plus. So yeah, much higher resolution display on the iPhone 7 Plus, but even this, a 1080p display, is quite behind something like you get on the Samsung Galaxy S7 or the S7 Edge, which have Quad HD displays, so 2560 by 1440, those displays just look incredible. In terms of the PPI, we have 326 on the iPhone 7, so the standard Retina PPI, and then on the iPhone 7 Plus, we have 401, so much higher, which basically makes the iPhone 7 Plus much better for VR. Although Apple doesn't actually sell any VR headsets, the only VR headset that works on the iPhone is the Google Cardboard. But Google Cardboard is really bad because of the motion blur, so hopefully Apple will develop their own VR headset soon, something like the Samsung Gear VR, or maybe even better. Now in terms of the display technology, this is still going to stay LCD for both the models, unfortunately. Apple's only going to switch to OLED next year with the next generation iPhone, the iPhone 8 in 2017. And by the way, I actually did a video on all the leaks and rumors regarding the next iPhone, 2017 iPhone, because yeah, the 2017 iPhone is going to be the biggest change yet. And that one is going to come with an OLED display, but until then, LCDs on both the models. Now in terms of the special display features, they both have an ambient display just like on the iPad Pros. So basically the display will automatically adjust its temperature based on the current lighting conditions. Pretty neat. And then finally, in terms of the actual display glass, both models come with an Ion X strengthened glass. It's a really durable glass, however it's still far behind something like Gorilla Glass 5 for example, which currently is only found in the Note 7, but Gorilla Glass 5 seems to be amazing. According to the manufacturer, camper, which is Corning, Gorilla Glass 5 can withstand drops of up to 1.6 meters on concrete, and that's just insane. Next up, we have the specs. So in terms of the CPU, we're going to get the Apple A10 chip on both the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus. And the Apple A10 chip is actually based on a smaller process, a 10nm process this time, so it's actually, the die size is smaller, so it's more power efficient, and it's also more powerful than the A9. Some rumors have initially suggested the Apple A10 chip to be a 6-core CPU, which would just be insane because this would be, in this case, this would be a multi-threading beast. So if this is the case, then we will get much better performance in apps such as GarageBand, for example, which do have to optimize complex projects before they can be played in real time, by the way. So this just might be a thing of the past with the iPhone 7. The Apple A9 chip is a dual-core 1.84 GHz processor, so I don't actually see Apple going from dual-core to 6-core just yet. Recent leaks have showed Geekbench scores for the supposed Apple A10 processor, and first off, those scores are just insane. The performance seems to be just on par with the Apple A9X processor, basically the one in the iPad Pros, and in case you don't know, that processor is insanely fast. I actually did a 4K video editing test, and it easily outperformed the Intel Core M processor, the Intel Core i5, and it was just a few seconds behind my quad-core Intel i7 Haswell processor. So yeah, the A9X is just insane performance-wise, and apparently the Apple A10 is going to be even better. Also, those Geekbench score leaks have showed the Apple A10 processor to be a dual-core chip. A dual-core 2.37 GHz processor, this is definitely more plausible than a 6-core one. Now on the iPhone 6 Plus, the processor was actually higher clocked than on the iPhone 6, so this might happen again with the iPhone 7, so we might just get a slightly higher clocked version of the Apple A10 chip on the iPhone 7 Plus. But regardless, you won't actually be noticing this difference in real day-to-day use. If this is the case, the iPhone 7 Plus will just be about a second or two behind when it comes to 4K export times. Other than that, you won't be noticing any difference. The Apple A9 chip was made by both Samsung and TSMC, and this time, the Apple A10 chip is going to be made only by TSMC. And this is because with the Apple A9 chip, while the TSMC version actually had a much better battery life than the one produced by Samsung, so this year Apple will be sticking to TSMC only. This is going to be the same for both models. So that's the CPU. Now what about the RAM? So in terms of the RAM, on the iPhone 7 we're going to get 2 GB of RAM, same amount of RAM as we had with the iPhone 6s and the iPhone 6s Plus. And then with the iPhone 7 Plus, well, this depends. As I said before, Apple was testing two different iPhone 7 5.5-inch iPhone 7 models, an iPhone 7 Plus and an iPhone 7 Pro. The Pro model is the one with the dual camera, the smart connector, and that one also came with 3 GB of RAM. And this is most likely the version that we will be getting only with the iPhone 7 Plus name. So 3 GB of RAM on the iPhone 7 Plus and 2 GB on the iPhone 7. And same as with the processor frequency, you won't actually be noticing any big difference on the iPhone 7 Plus, and this is because the RAM management in iOS is already pretty good. I actually did a video a while ago in which I compared multiple smartphones with different amounts of RAM, an iPhone 6 with 1 GB, an iPhone 6s with 2 GB, and a OnePlus 2 with 4 GB of RAM. And surprisingly, the iPhone 6s had the best RAM management. It managed to hold the most apps open in the background. So overall, in terms of the performance, even though you won't be noticing that much of a difference between the two models, the iPhone 7 Plus is still a better choice. Next up, number 4, we have the camera. The resolution is going to be the same on both models, 12 megapixels, basically the same resolution as we had with the iPhone 6s and the iPhone 6s Plus. Now in terms of the aperture, on the iPhone 6s we have an f2.2 aperture, which is, it's a pretty small one, so in low light the camera is actually pretty bad. Yeah, this is an iPhone 6s versus an S7 Edge. The S7 Edge comes with an f1.7 aperture, and on the iPhone 7 we're going to get an aperture size of f1.7 to f1.9, so it's most likely going to be f1.7 by the way, so much better low light photography. On the iPhone 7 Plus we're going to get a dual camera module, and this is a really interesting thing. It was developed by Lynx Technology, and it will basically have two functions. The first one is going to be optical zoom, so you'll be able to zoom in a photo without losing that much quality, and this is because one of the lenses is a telephoto lens, so you would get a zoomed out shot, and the other one is a normal or a macro lens, so you get a more zoomed in shot. And then the iPhone will combine those two images, and you will be able to zoom and post without losing that much quality. And this will work for both photos and videos. And then the second function is in terms of low light photography. So Lynx Technology has actually patented this. Basically each camera takes a photo at a different ISO level, and then the iPhone compares those two images and cleans up the noise, and yeah, the images look like this. Now in terms of the aperture of the iPhone 7 Plus, it should be the same on both the lenses, so between f1.7 to f1.9, again most likely f1.7 on both lenses. So yeah, the iPhone 7 Plus's camera does come with some pretty unique features. Now in terms of other features such as optical image stabilization, previously with the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6s we only had OIS on the iPhone 6s and 6 Plus. Now we're expecting to have it on the iPhone 7 as well. Other than that, on the iPhone 6s you can now record 4K videos and the bitrate is capped at about 85 megabytes per second, so that's usually the maximum bitrate that you can get on these. But with the iPhone 7s, we're expecting to see an increase from 85 to about 100 or 120. Other than that, dual tone flash on both models, and the slow motion is going to remain the same, so 720p at 240 frames per second and 1080p at 120. Now in terms of the front facing camera, we are going to get some pretty big improvements. The resolution is most likely going to stay the same, so 5 megapixels just as we had on the iPhone 6s. However, on the iPhone 6s we were limited to 720p video, and this is going to be improved to 1080p, which is pretty cool, but it's still behind something like the Samsung Galaxy S7 or the S7 Edge, which can shoot up to 40 and 40p. Now in terms of the aperture is going to be increased from f2.2 like we had on the iPhone 6s to f1.7 to match the back-facing camera on both models. So the front-facing camera is also going to be much better in low light. Other than that, panorama, HDR, retina flash, everything is still going to be there on both models. So in terms of the camera, the iPhone 7 Plus is a much better option just because of that dual camera module, which again is going to be much better in low light, and also you will be able to zoom in your shots without losing that much quality. Moving on to section number 5, we have special features. So with the iPhone 6s, we had 3D touch, and with iOS 10, we're getting improved functionality. So for example, 3D touching on the notification center to clear all notifications, or in the control center, you can now 3D touch on the toggles, and you can also 3D touch now on certain apps, and this will give you widgets, so much more functionality in iOS 10. And yeah, 3D touch is not going anywhere. The first new feature is actually going to be waterproofing or water resistancy, so the iPhone 7s will be IP68 certified. This means submersion of up to 1.5 meters of water up to 30 minutes. Second, quick charging is also coming finally. This wasn't an issue with the iPhone 6s because, well, the iPhone 6s does have a pretty small battery, but in the iPhone 6s Plus it actually takes 3 hours to fully charge, obviously depending on which charger you use. But yeah, quick charging is definitely coming on the iPhone 7 Plus and most likely on the iPhone 7 as well. A feature that's only going to be found on the iPhone 7 Plus is that smart connector. So these are some iPhone 7 Pro casing leaks, and all of them have a smart connector. We do get a smart connector on the iPad Pros as well, and on the iPads it's only used to connect that smart keyboard. So you don't actually need to pair or even power that keyboard. The smart connector does everything. On the iPhone 7 Plus, it's kind of unlikely that we would be getting a keyboard. We'll definitely see some attachments, some accessory that you will be able to buy for that smart connector. Some of them are most likely going to be smart cases or charging pads that will allow you to charge your iPhone 7 Plus much quicker than, for example, by using actual wireless charging. So yeah, the smart connector will definitely have its uses. Other than that, the dual camera, which I talked before, that's also a pretty big special feature unique to the iPhone 7 Plus. Next up, let's talk about the battery life. So on the iPhone 6s, we have a 750 mAh battery, and on the iPhone 7, we're going to get 1960, so quite a major improvement for an iPhone. Now the Apple A10 chip is also much more power efficient than the A9, being based on a smaller process, so overall, the battery life on the iPhone 7 is going to be much better than on the iPhone 6s. Now what about the iPhone 7 Plus? So with the iPhone 6s Plus, we had the 2750 mAh battery, and with the iPhone 7 Plus, we're expecting about the 2800 to 2900 mAh battery. So not a huge improvement, but again, with the Apple A10 chip, it's actually going to be much better than on the iPhone 6s Plus. But overall, if you're a heavy user, then the iPhone 7 Plus is going to be a much better option for you. I'm a pretty heavy user myself, and unfortunately with the iPhone 6s, I cannot make it through a full day of usage. So I actually need a battery case or a battery pack to charge my iPhone. So yeah, if you're a heavy user and you don't want to carry around a battery case or a battery pack, then definitely get the iPhone 7 Plus. Next up, number 7, we have the capacity. So with the iPhone 6s, the baseline model was 16 gigabytes, and 16 gigabytes in 2016 is simply a joke. Especially because now you can actually record 4K videos with the iPhone 6s, so 16 gigabytes is definitely not enough, at least not when you don't have an option for an SD card. But with the iPhone 7, that's going to change. So the baseline model is going to be 32 gigabytes on both models, finally. So we're going to have 32, 64, and 128 on the iPhone 7, and 32, 128, and also a special edition 256 gigabyte option as well. Now to be honest, nowadays not even 32 gigabytes is enough when you can record 4K videos and when apps can actually take quite a lot of space. So definitely get at least 64 gigabytes of storage. And finally, we have the price. So these are the prices for the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus in the US and the UK. Now, if for some reason Apple is going to release all 3 models, so the iPhone 7, the iPhone 7 Plus, and then the iPhone 7 Pro, the one with the dual camera that I'm talking about in this video. So if the iPhone 7 Plus I talked about in this video is going to be the Pro, and then Apple will also have a non-dual camera module, just a 5.5 inch model, that would be the Plus. If this is going to be the case, then these are all the prices for all the iPhone 7 models in the US and the UK. So I'll be doing a hands-on review and a hands-on comparison between those two devices as soon as they're out, so feel free to subscribe if you want to see that. I also did a video comparing the iPhone 7 versus the iPhone 6s, so if you want to watch that video, just click here and you'll be taken to that video. Also, if you have enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a huge like. It took quite a while to make, So yeah, every single feedback is really appreciated. And yeah, I've kind of lost my voice, that's why I'm talking like this. That means that this was a really long video, so if you were epic enough to make it to the end of this video, let me know in the comments by saying I was epic enough to make it to the end of this video. Also let me know which phone was more suitable for you, the iPhone 7 or the iPhone 7 Plus. For me personally, it's neither, just because I do love the form factor of the iPhone 7, but I also want the performance and the camera features of the iPhone 7 Plus. So I'll be getting both the models, so lots of coverage once they're out, and then I'll decide which one to keep. Other than that, also feel free to follow me on Twitter for more tech updates there as well. And also don't forget to turn on notifications on my channel on both desktop and mobile. On mobile by simply clicking on that bell icon next to my channel so that you're notified as soon as I upload a brand new epic video. Other than that, this was pretty much it for this video, so thank you all for watching this video up until this point. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Zen of Tech, signing out. Cheers.